hard lane to snowball in on as well. An Orianna that gets really far ahead, gets some early double pen items, completes her Morel Nomicon, yeah, that can work.
Yep.
But if that doesn't happen, it is hard to snowball into Vladimir. And as a result, the Tristana just was always a step behind the Sivir over the course of the whole game.
And we'll see if anything is adapted here into game number 2 of this best of 3 series. We see Big God Jackals on the blue side, this time banning out Tahm Kench, which is not something very standard last time, but still continuing to ban out the LeBlanc. And now it's eUnited who continue to ban the Caitlyn away from the side of Big God Jackals, but are now forced to ban that Zac.
Looks like a little bit of a telegraph of potentially a Blitzcrank here. Tahm Kench is a champion that sometimes you play into that Blitzcrank. It can be pretty annoying if you obviously if you get grabbed. Also into Thresh, another champion that the Big God Jackals might want to play this time around because they picked the Braum into the Thresh. Didn't quite work out for them. They want to potentially get rid of some counter picks. It does leave the Galio up though, as eUnited do not want to give away the first pick, Elise. And so now we're gonna have to see what they can do with this one.
So Galio has been picked up. He's thinking maybe telegraphing the Blitzcrank or maybe even a Thresh pickup here. Biono very much known for his own Thresh play himself. That was picked up by Zeyzal last game. But now United has the opportunity by giving away the Galio kind of power pick here. One of the OPs that have been left open in this one. Can wind up taking 2 for themselves. They could wind up going for something along the lines of, the Gragas or something, taking it away from Sirti. But they decide to open up with a Morgana pickup in addition to the Gragas.
A little surprised to see the Morgana blind like that. I mean, we were reading potentially a Blitzcrank, potentially a Thresh. I mean, eUnited seems to have that same read because Morgana is great into both of those as well. But it does feel a little bit premature because now Big Gods can try and pivot. While Braum is a champion that Morgana also does well, and because you see the passive stacks building up, you can put the Black Shield on that target. At the same time, Braum in team fights is still a much bigger threat and can actually go in and initiate and do those kinds of things. So it is a little bit surprising to see that Morgana kind of come out like that. Big Gods Jackals do return back to that Tristana pick, so not too surprising there. It's just a question if they really do go with a Thresh here.
Well, instead it looks like Kha'Zix has risen in the priority here. They're not going to be going for a Lee Sin or anything like that. Instead, the Void Bug will be picked up for the side of Big God Jackals and Sirti in the jungle. So we'll see if he's going to be doing something. Who's kind of playing front line, playing a little bit of disruption. A lot of times they're relying on him for the engage because the Kled charge was pretty much on cooldown from being used to run away from the Gnar in the split situation. This time around he's on something that's a little bit more carry centric. So let's see if he's able to step up to the task. But yet another blind pick coming in from eUnited. Second game in a row is going to be a pretty much blind pick Gnar. Well, could potentially be a top lane Galio.
Yeah, I think you're picking that under the assumption it's the Galio. The Kled counter pick was not intimidating at all. You smashed it in lane, you ganked it early on for a kill, so you're saying, all right, well, we'll blind Gnar again, show me something better than Kled, because otherwise we'll play that. If you put the Galio up there, it's still a good matchup for Gnar, so if you flex the Galio, you haven't seen anything to make you think that they have something prepared better. Overall, I like that decision by eUnited to take the Gnar there and just say, do something, because obviously if you put Kled up there again, I'm going to smash it for a second game in a row.
It's also very interesting to see the Yasuo bans coming out from the side at eUnited. It was in game 1 and game number 2. Of course, very good pickup into the Gnar, so just wanting to get rid of one of those kind of counter lane matchups. As you see, continued focus down onto the bot lane position here. They secure the Tristana from Big God Jackal's side, banning away the Ashe, and we'll see if they follow with the same kind of Jhin ban they did as in game number 1.
And that's the thing is that while the Ashe and Jhin ban didn't, seem to be that huge of a threat, given the fact that definitely still had a pretty good game overall, it did limit some of the playmaking that you saw at eUnited. They felt like it was a lot harder for them to close that game out with a Sivir ultimate than it might have been if they had that Varus or that Ashe or that Jhin, one of those instead. So overall, I still kind of like that decision to go back to those bans, potentially on the side of Big Gods Jackals, and force definitely, hopefully, onto that Sivir for a second game in a row.
And we see a Bard ban coming out from the side at eUnited, so not wanting Biono to play something that could potentially be a little bit more playmaking, but the Orianna ban is going to be coming in now from the side of Big Gods Jackals. They don't want kind of the go-to safe lane matchup for GBM to kind of pick up for himself. Instead, does wind up leaving the Jhin open, does wind up leaving the Varus open. We'll see if United snatches that one up for Deathly. It looks like they may be wanting to hover over that Sivir again. It was effective once it survived laning phase last game, and if United think that they're just going to wind up coming out ahead in this game again, they could go for it, but I've been bamboozled, and they switched to a different Shurima champion and gone for the Talia instead.
United just trolling you, Tom. They want you to go on this little rant about the Sivir. Talia, I do like the decision potentially to take the Talia here. It's a champion that doesn't have many horribly losing matchups in the mid lane, especially once you get that LeBlanc out of there. Champion that can get a little bit annoying. There's some other ones as well that can get frustrating, like a Cassin, things like that. So you're basically saying Big Gods Jackals, if you're going to play that and beat our Talia, hats off to you. But in the meantime, in most standard matchups, the Talia is just fine, going to go push, and it's a good blind. And eUnited saying, all right, well, we're not exactly sure what they're doing down this bot side here. Maybe we really don't want that Sivir because last time around we talked about the the Braum, compared with the Tristana, you don't have 2 range. You can't abuse that short range Sivir quite as hard. This time around, because the support hasn't been taken, you hold off on that Sivir pick. I like that decision. See what you're going to be up against, and then decide if, yeah, that's really what we want to play. And it is.
It is, so they lock it in here, but it's going to be Pekin Woof getting his Corki this time around. It was banned away in game number 1 by eUnited. This time he gets his hands on it against that Taliyah matchup. Haven't seen a lot of this matchup in the Corki and Taliyah 1v1 much myself, but it's a Pekin Woof kind of legacy pick himself, so we'll see if he's able to wind up pushing down onto the Rift against GBM this time around. But compositions have a couple familiar faces in their lineups, but a little bit of a different functionality overall. Big Gods Jackals specifically, they don't necessarily have the same amount of disruption. They have a Thresh Hook, which is kind of like their go-to initiation. They have a Galio to follow up if they wind up landing one of those, but pretty much damage coming in across their line. Whereas eUnited, very similar function to game number 1. The Gragas is necessarily a downgrade from the Elise in the early game at least, but still has the potential to gank those lanes early on.
And the scary thing for the side of Big Gods Jackals is, while I really do like the Corki pick into the Taliyah, champion I forgot to mention during that whole thing is that the Corki will generally outperform the Taliyah in lane. Taliyah is going to have a little bit of an early push, but then it starts getting hard to deal with the trades that tend to go in Corki's favor. The problem I see is that the Galio always works best when you combo it with some other kind of good initiation tool. That's why you see the Jarvan Galio combination do so much to enemy teams. And here, the most he really has to work with is a Kha'Zix jumping in, which is really, really not the best initiation. So you might end up with, you do have double ranged AD carries, well, even though it's a bit of a stretch to call Corki an AD carry.
He's a marksman.
Marksman, excuse me. Yeah, there you go. The Galio is great defensively as well, but it's really not quite that same of a threat as when you see it used offensively.
Well, if first you don't succeed, then define it again with a subclass. But if we see a couple of trades going down early, just for a bit of vision control around the map, and the Galio Kha'Zix kind of combination with something we saw at MSI that the Gigabyte Marines were using effectively. Even saw a Zed in some of those circumstances, but like you did say, there's no real hard engagement for the Galio to really follow up on, and the engagement opportunities were something that Big Gods Jackals were really lacking, especially the fact that they had 2 of them last game, but one of them was constantly used to run away, which was the Kled charge.
And this time around, like you said, even less available for them for this initiation. We did see them yesterday. We mentioned they won their series matchup, and a lot of it was with this double marksman kind of composition. They had Caitlyn that time around using the Tristana. So maybe they can get a little bit of a lead with some of these good matchups more on the bot side of the map, and then they can transition that into a bit of a siege comp and really stop Licorice from being able to split push. There you see
a lot of damage coming out.
That's a lot of damage to deal with. Level 1 definitely does have the Doran shield, but is forced to use his potion already early on. Last time around, he held on to that potion for almost the entire early laning phase. I believe he didn't even use it before he went back for the first time. This time it starts out much worse, and that's one of the advantages we talked about when you have that double range composition. It's much easier to get involved and kind of abuse the short range Sivir.
And we also wind up seeing that eUnited's bottom duo was kind of waiting in the brush as close to Big Gods Jackals as possible, trying to get a bit of a jump on them, maybe a little bit of some cheese damage, but they were the ones that took the damage themselves, as we see level 2 being hit by on a landing hook on a Deathloop, but they're so far under their tower that Tristana can't even outrange that quite yet. Meanwhile, Big Gods Jackals in the mid lane, Pekin Woof on this Corki pickup, going to feel well at home against this Taliyah. We'll see if this matchup winds up being swayed a little bit more in favor from the jungle influence. Sir T, as you mentioned, doesn't really have any hard crowd control to commit to any of these ganks, so we may see him kind of gravitate towards this top lane matchup, A, for the fact that Licorice was a big problem, and 2, for the fact that that's one of the only lanes that has CC safe for this bottom lane Thresh.
That's one of the things that the Galio can do, is even if you lose the matchup, you can always, of course, use his excellent gank setup. So if you get the Justice Punch into a taunt, something like that, Gnar does have some small ways of outplaying that. If he gets the jump away from the Justice Punch, you're probably going to end up out of range to really get a good taunt off. But if you find an opening to actually get some CC down, Kha'Zix can bring the damage to finish him off.
We'll see now. eUnited had picked up that spell shield on Sivir at level 2, so feeling a little bit safer in this lane matchup. Though we see the Thresh Hooks being utilized to break that shield, and then having the Morgana Black Shield trying to absorb as much of the explosive charge damage as possible. Top side of the map, though, Chris, even though he is the melee in this matchup, getting a little bit more of the push advantage coming out from that Winds of War that Galio is going to be able to wave clear with quite effectively against Licorice's Gnar. And we'll see if Chris, now that he's on a bit more of a tank matchup and playing a bit more of a frontline kind of utility role, if he has any more success than he did on the Kled this time around. But now Licorice getting chunked down here by Sir T. Thought about going in for that tower, but both of these champions have their flashes available, so Sir T just backing away, playing the zoning duties on the Kha'Zix.
Really nice chunk, though, because it forces Licorice back to base. He's going to have to teleport in. He's missing XP and CS during this time, not going to get as good of first purchase as he really would have wanted to. And it also, you know, frees up a lot of pressure on this top side because you'll be able to get this teleport now advantage on the side of Chris, and then that can allow your bot lane to keep playing aggressive because you know that they can't really gank your bot side if they're going to keep pushing in like they've been doing earlier.
We saw a bit of damage from Fabi going down onto Zazel. Top side of the map, we saw on the mini-map just a little bit of a brush camp from Christian Surti, waiting for the teleport for Licorice to come in, but they were unable to really get the jump down on the Gnar as the minions crashed into the tower just a little bit too late, and Gnar sniffed that one out. Bottom side of the map is where Danny is spending most of his time now. He knew that they were Surti up in the top side of the map, so Danny just pillaging the bottom side of the jungle here, getting himself a decent amount of experience in CS advantage. Now Surti is going to make his presence down in the mid lane here, but Danny just shows up to give GBM a little bit of protection. He did want to pop in the Ghost though from the Talia. They're actually able to get a lot of damage on that peek and move. Has to burn his heal to try to get out of this one alive, but now Surti, a lot of damage coming out down onto this Kha'Zix onto the Gragas, but had to back away from both sides here. As Big God Jackals actually coming out with worse for wear. Peek and Wolf has to go back to base.
Peek and Wolf's going to be forced back. They're going to push in this turret. Chris still getting overall pretty nice trades, really playing the range of that turret quite well. They're surprised to see him not take a turret shot on that trade. Definitely kind of 2v1 in the lane. You don't know where the Morgana is. No vision down the bot side. Zazel been out of lane, roaming around a little bit, potentially wanted to join in that mid lane fight before coming back down bottom here. And you see Licorice low again. Looks like Chris might want to try and force the dive by himself. Good trades and really getting the better of the matchup this time around with some of that early jungle influence.
And now Chris has himself a bit of an advantage on that top side, whereas it eUnited with Dandy and Licorice kind of combining to get the kill and the tower dive onto Chris when they were level 6 or 7. That gave the side of eUnited the advantage. This time around, Chris, now he's up in CS 47 compared to 31. On the bottom side of the map, though, the CS totals have kind of evened out a little bit. So even though Definitely was being abused early on at level 1, he has gotten himself back up here between him and Zazel to really go toe-to-toe with Fabi and Bayano on this Tristana and Thresh combination, although Definitely still not without a couple of battle scars himself, as Fabi dipping and ducking out from these Morgana bindings. Very nicely getting some damage down in the bottom lane matchup.
Overall, pretty nice. Gotta say, after that first initial chunk out by Surti on that top side, I was a little disappointed that they stayed around and went for the cheesy brush camp that you were mentioning. I think it would have been better if they just took that kind of tempo advantage, get their recall off, and have Chris walk back to lane and actually get that advantage as opposed to sitting around camping and then having to teleport back to stay even in the matchup or, well, to continue pressuring. Ends up without them having a teleport advantage. At the end of the day, though, they do still have basically an extra global available with that Galio ultimate, but you can't quite get down to this bot side now because you see Fabi and Bayano really want to play this matchup as aggressive as possible, and anytime you get a teleport advantage on the top side, that heavily changes how the bot side works.
Ooh, the seismic shove into a flash body slam. They knew Surti was there the whole time, and the bug gets splat.
I saw them setting that up, but I thought I would have had a little bit more time to finish my point, but eUnited very coordinated on that play, instantly blow him up. Surti gives over first blood in this slower paced game.
Yeah, and then once it going over to Dandy on Gragas, so that early game focused jungler, or jungler with some decent early game focus, going to be continuing to do so here. Now in the top lane matchup here, Licorice just hit level 6, going to get some Gnar time against the wall, though Chris going to be content to just kind of trade blows back and forth for the time being. Been a bit tanky in and of himself, although he has gotten a Dark Seal in addition to a Corrupting Potion. No real tank itemization, but just a decent amount of sustain on the Galio.
We'll take another look at that play. Surti clearing this ward. Ward's over, sees Dandy, but does not see GBM. Overall, still kind of greedy, though, because you know he has left lane. He's not in the mid lane anymore, so does not see the W coming from the Talia, goes down. Wolf a little low here, might be getting focused.
Ooh, flashes away from the explosive cast. Bop him on the other side of that blast plane.
Overall, nice play again out of Dandy, getting more advantages around this mid lane, forcing Wolf to go home, and GBM unfortunately has the wave kind of frozen on his side right now. Ideally, he wants to be kind of shoving that one in, but he has no mana to do so. Dandy will steal away the blue buff, though, to ensure that Wolf does not get that really annoying ultimate spam.
Well, it's like eUnited, although they don't have the advantages that Licorice did in game number 1. They're transitioning that into the mid lane and the jungle now as Dandy and GBM have gotten some early game advantages. Most importantly, they also haven't ceded pressure in that bottom side of the map, so even though things look to be going in Big God Jackals' favor on that bottom lane matchup, CS actually just a couple in favor of Definitely now, as he has gone back and actually acquired himself a extremely late Cole, in addition to that BF sword for himself. So already at about 70 CS, he's only gotten 6 of it off of that Cole, so it'll be a bit of investment banking here from that sword, but that'll be A-okay considering it worked out for eUnited last game.
And given the pace of this game so far, you would definitely not say this is a fast-paced game, so you can expect to hopefully continue farming out. Big Guys Jackals do hit a little bit of a power spike here with Corki getting this package. Maybe they can find a place to roam to with it. Your bot lane can push in, maybe make a 4-man play with that Galio ultimate or teleport available. Otherwise, you have to be a little bit scared of this game just kind of stalling out. The Talia will eventually find an opportunity to use her ultimate, maybe up to that top side, try and get that Gnar going. Both teams have a couple plays that are going to be available to them.
And good thing you mentioned the Corki package. You want to getting used in the mid lane here, just to farm out some minions that were about to expire. But the roaming potential for both of these mid laners extremely telegraphed from Big God's Jackal side. As soon as you hear the kind of air raid sirens coming out from the Corki package, you know that he's going to be on the move. Whereas Talia, once every 100 or so seconds, she has that Weaver's Wall just kind of collapse down onto somebody. And with the Infernal Drake being available and the Weaver's Wall up, we'll see if eUnited tries to make a play for it on this time around. We did see Zazel putting down some wards in the area. Big God's Jackals don't want to be giving this one up for free. So instead, trying to fight for some vision control of their own, and actually will steal away the Scuttle Crab here, going over to the side of Surti.
A lot of focus down vision control in this bot river, knowing that the Infernal Dragon will be a very important objective to pick up for both teams here. Both having a lot of damage, able to use that well. Surti, jungler that can actually use it. Good trade by GBM there, really poking Pekkenwolf very, very low and potentially almost getting the solo kill. No flash for Pekkenwolf, so he had to play that one very close, but enough chunk damage done that eUnited might be able to actually force down this Infernal Dragon now.
Yeah, so we do see Zazel's already moved up into the mid lane here. Actually, Surti's coming in. The Hero's Entrance is there as well. Justice Punch will not only eat the binding, but go forward a little bit. Has to flash away as the teleport comes in here from Licorice. Explosive cast finally getting used there from Dandy, and they're able to pick up a kill on the Chris.
A good idea gone wrong. Chris ulted in on the initiating Surti, but after he gets involved there, he actually Justice Punches straight up the lane, which is right where Licorice was teleporting in. Puts himself really, really out of position there. Zazel also landed the binding right as he was coming in as well, so he couldn't initially run away. Ends up going down, but it did stall out long enough for Pekkenwolf to get back in there, so maybe they can't go for this dragon now.
And meanwhile, Fabi and Deathly trading blows on the bottom side of the map. Fabi to a level disadvantage here. It's now about 10 CS advantage for Deathly Sivir. As you mentioned, United not feeling quite safe enough to go for the Dragon Play. Instead, want to try to get another pick with a good Black Shield coming out from Morgana and Zazel. Disengages from Bayano is now Dandy. Body slams over the backside of the Dragon Pit wall. Does have to push on the bottom side, so he's able to walk at A-OK.
So we'll take another look at this. They force Pekkenwolf flow. Surti wants to blow up GBM. Nice flash out there. The ultimate does nothing. And he Justice Punches a way into the middle of the lane, tries to flash out, but at this point he's been chunked out low enough, no longer has his cooldown available, and flash doesn't generate enough distance. And that's what we're saying. Second game in a row, excuse me, where Chris has made a bit of a mispositioning after teleporting in. It cost the team a lot.
Ooh, Big God's Jackals, meantime, making some big plays. They're able to wind up chunking down Dandy. They're trying to go for the Infernal Drake. It's really low, but Surti winds up going down. And now no smites are available from either side to finish this one off, but Chris comes off the backside from a teleport. He's able to pick up a kill onto GBM, so Big God's Jackals so far 2 for 1. But there's still a very healthy Sivir coming out from Deathly. Boomerang Blade will not steal away the dragon. Peekamove secures that one. Fabi actually getting aggressive, leaps down towards Deathly, blows the spell shield. Peekamove in the meantime will lose his life on the backside as Licorice joins the fray. 2 for 2, and Infernal Drake going over to Big God's Jackals.
A really nice force there by Big God's Jackals, sensing that eUnited had potentially overstayed a little bit after getting that kill around the mid lane. They force it down. Licorice had returned up to the top side, whereas Chris knew that he wanted to go back down to the bot side. Also having that teleport available coming up very useful, given the fact that he used his ultimate initially in that mid lane engagement. So they're able to use that number advantage for the dragon, but unfortunately Zazel is playing out of his mind. Both those kills came off the back of his bindings. Also the first kill in the mid lane was off the back of a Zazel binding. So we talk about this guy being a little bit of the unsung hero. Just watch this play where Dandy walks way too far forward and gets blown up right at the start of this. A nice binding there onto the Kha'Zix, takes the smite away, basically gets the kill for himself. And now GBM also mispositioning, running into the pit with no summoners available. He's going to drop. And now Zazel lands a binding, starts getting Chris low. Pekkenwolf wants to try and force out Zazel. He's going to greed out on finishing him off. And another binding is going to land. Third one in a row that's going to connect. And this one's going to set up Licorice to pick up the kill.
3 for 3 on bindings in these fights. There is Zazel. eUnited also off the back of that fight early, get themselves the first tower of the game. So while they lost the Infernal Drake and some scaling late game power, it's almost 3,000 gold in their favor here, crossing the 15-minute mark. This is looking very similar to the way that game number 1 had gone. Of course, there was a fight around the Dragon Pit about 18 minutes that really sealed the deal on the, or at least the advantages for eUnited in that game. Is now Big God Jackals doing pretty much what they did last time, swapping Fabi around the map, trying to find an open tower for him to be able to push down quite aggressively with this Tristana pick. Though now eUnited are going to be in prime position to try to stop that one. Surti, though, continue to go down on this mid lane here. GBM actually going to get caught out, and Peekaboo picks up a kill.
So we're talking about the Talia matchup starting to get a little bit difficult as the game goes on. Corki bringing a lot of lane control available, and GBM with no summoners available is all too easily chunked out, and Surti finds an opening to jump over onto the wall. Not really enough vision control around that mid-river. You see one ward kind of over the wall, but if that doesn't spot him out, the entire river is open for Big God's Jackals, and Surti grabs a kill off that.
So Big God's Jackals able to secure themselves a kill. Get something back in this game. It's now Chris going toe-to-toe with Licorice. Licorice has gone into mini-Gnar form and is on a bit of a exhausted cooldown here. Surti tries to land the Void Spikes. Are they actually going to go for a dive here? Tower aggro actually goes down onto Chris, but Surti gets the kill here as Licorice flashes forward, but he's able to get the kill back onto that one as the tower was not done yet and winds up firing the last shot down onto Surti. Now Dandy's showing up into the fray as Pika move. Try to dive through to help get the kill as well. Weaver's Wall will not be long enough to cut them off, but we'll be here to deliver Talia into the fray. Chris is on one brush, Pika moves in the other, and they decide to find out what's behind door number 1 as GBM picks up a revenge kill onto the Corki.
And Chris is just going to be able to teleport away, say, nope, I don't want any part of that. That looks like that's going to be pretty bad. Nice play by Licorice to stall that out long enough. A bit of a miss juggling on the turret allowed the aggro to go onto Surti, so he dies after initially tanking it and setting up that kill for Peckenwolf. And then Dandy almost lands the ultimate on him, but it forces a really weird situation where he has to walk back through the turret, and GBM's finally able to find his first Talia ultimate, which gets him a kill there and also helps him grab this turret.
And so bottom tower goes over to the side of eUnited, even though Big God's Jackal is the one pushing away on the top side. And this all started into a friendly 1v1 duel between solo laners when all of a sudden a jungler showed up.
Yeah, nice jump there to get some extra distance. Instead of going for the damage onto Chris, understands that getting the slow onto Surti is much more important for his survival. It would have been enough for him to live if not for the fact that Peckenwolf has cut him off from behind. He flashes under the turret, which didn't actually do that much there, but I like the idea of trying to force them back into the turret knowing that they were low. And then you see Dandy able to cut off Peckenwolf's escape to the top side. GBM also ulting in and gets the second kill here after, Surti went down to that turret aggro.
Meanwhile, Chris just watched and waited in the brush as he wound up going back to base. So that Pika move off of that death has gone back and picked up pieces for his Trinity Force. Not yet picked up the entire item, so not quite on the Trinity Force Corki Power Spike, about 16.5 minutes in. Does have the package available though, and we'll be utilizing that to motor himself up to this top lane where Big God's Jackals continues to try to push down this tower. Actually, is going to wind up finding Dandy coming up the river at the same time. Big God's Jackals will finally get that tower down, and Pekin will be using the package to kind of stop a counter coming out from the side of eUnited.
Chris canceled his TP.
Yeah, Chris's TP got canceled, but Licorice is still here, but he's behind an enemy tower, so Big God's Jackal's actually going to leap down onto the Gnar, kill him before he even transforms on the front side of this by Pyano's giving up his life, and that one goes over to Deathly. So it's been a 1-for-1 trade with a tower going over to Big God's Jackals.
A very scattered fight overall on the side of eUnited. They didn't realize that they were walking through wards, so Dandy's initial engage kind of got caught off by Peckenwolf there. Chris was teleporting on a minion that was right next to the turret. He wanted to back off that one and cancels his TP, which is kind of a go button for Licorice to say, I'm going to finish mine, but he still ends up behind the enemy. I believe Fabi Buster shot him further back into the turret, and then he realized he's too low to actually escape that way. Tried to escape by cutting through the turret, still ends up going down, and it was a very scrappy situation, I'd say. That would have been a lot better if Chris had just finished his TP here.
And we saw both teleports being utilized, but the TP from Chris being canceled. And as you mentioned, Big God Jackals, you mentioned there's a Buster shot collapsing on the Licorice, knocking him into the tower range. It kind of splits up the fight here as we see a Gnar and a support on opposite sides of the fight going down.
Yeah, but there you see how well that fight could have gone if Chris did not cancel his TP. Could have been able to help keep his support alive and potentially set up more kills after they correctly identified Licorice as the big threat to focus down. So a really well-played fight by the 4-man side of Big God Jackals, just missing their frontliner in Chris.
Infernal Drake has respawned on the map with the second one of the game here. eUnited are already in position to try to take this one down. Scuttle Crab and Vision Control in their favor. Surti looking to potentially go for a steal here, but an explosive cast over the wall knocks away any sort of attempt. First Drake of the game for eUnited. goes over to them.
Really smart preemptive barrel there on the side of Danny. Just ult them away. And hold on, scrap the mid lane.
A flash play attempt does not wind up landing. A hook winds up landing down onto GBM, but he is not going to be able to be affected by that thanks to a bit of a black shield coming out from Morgana. But now Big God's Jackals, they committed a lot of that, trying to just collapse down into a fight. Let's see if they're able to get any tower damage to compensate for that.
Chunking out the Talia is pretty nice. She is an easy form of wave clear. Definitely has a lot as well, but does kind of need to step up to do it. Gets forced down a little low. Does end up clearing the wave though. Big God's Jackals dropping that turret down below half health. Not quite what you'd want after giving up an Infernal Dragon.
Not really, and using the hero's entrance on top of that as well.
All right, a lot of playmaking tools down now for both teams. Dandy had a really nice ultimate there. He just preemptively threw that out, knocked Surti away from the wall. You don't need to try and interrupt the jump or anything crazy like that. Just force him away, so he has to really, really hard commit if he wants to try and make it back into the pit, as well as the fact that he timed that well with the dragon getting bursted down by his team.
So eUnited getting themselves an Infernal Drake of their own to match that one that Big God's Jackals has acquired. As we're now at about 20 minutes into the game, it's not the same 5,000 gold lead for eUnited as we had in game number 1. Instead, it's only a 3,000 gold advantage, so Big God Jackals keeping things a little bit closer this time around. But still, the gold advantage that they want to have on Fabi, despite him being 1, 0, and 2, his CS total's not quite matching deftly, and he's actually behind that Sivir in the matchup by about 700 gold. And this time around, Licorice, once again, not 1,000 gold advantage, but 800 in his favor. And Chris, though, going to try to even this up a little bit, but a good flash response from Licorice from the flash taunt coming out from Chris. We have Bayano and Surti coming down here to commit to this fight. And it looks like the Big God Jackals will be able to find themselves a Gnar, but what's going to happen on the top side of the map? There's no Rift Herald available this time. It is a Baron. Instead, they're going to be going down for Peek and Woof. Are they going to be able to pick up a kill on him is a big question. Zazel, binding is flashed away by Peek and Woof.
Licorice has not been getting much help on the side of eUnited. He keeps getting focused down. We saw it in game 1 with the roams coming in, finishing him off. This time again getting roamed on and killed. And this is a potentially big problem for eUnited if you're looking at how they lost to Gold Coin United yesterday as well, with Solo becoming a monster split push threat. It does feel like, despite how well Licorice plays a lot of these games, the team does not play particularly well around him in terms of setting up with vision, letting him know when people are missing off the map, and when he needs to back off and start playing more defensively.
Ooh, but Fabi's going to get flash body slam destroyed, definitely with a couple boomerang shots, picks up a kill.
Really nice pick off there on the side of eUnited, finding some vision control and getting Fabi down before he could really get out of there. And now they're continuing looking for
Bayano was on a ward the whole time. Definitely goes on a killing spree. And even though eUnited might be having trouble giving support to Licorice this game specifically, they're still being able to utilize the pressure that he creates on the map and being able to play around him. So while they may not be directly influencing him this time, he got ganked at level early on in the top lane this time instead of getting the gank to set him up this time around. He's still trading back and forth in these situations, 3, 3, and 0. So while his team might not be giving him the resources to do so, all the praise we give to Licorice is just shining through in the fact he's continuing to kind of take these one-for-one trades for himself.
Yeah, overall, he's doing fine. Fortunately, finding some opportunities to trade back with some good vision control on the top side of that river. And once again, Zazel coming up pretty big with some bindings to set those up.
Yeah, so Zazel and the 4-man unit of eUnited continuing to make things happen on the map. We saw Chris with the Justice Punch and the taunt. Just a little bit of a cheeky interrupt onto the recall coming out from GBM, making him go a bit further back to do so for himself. Another 8 minutes or so have passed, so that means that another package has been picked up by Corki on this bottom side. So now Peek and Woof with a Zeal and Eternity Force for himself, become a bit of a split push menace and deciding to go head toe-to-toe against Licorice on this Gnar. Gonna wind up utilizing the package just to wave clear some minions and get away from the tower aggro being drawn right there. But it does mean that Dandy is coming down to the side of the map as well. So Peek and Woof, realizing that was there because of a ward, has to back away. The rest of Big God's Jackals, though, content to push up in this mid lane. They chunked that tower down to about half HP before after they lost the Infernal Drake, but kind of just going back and forth a little bit. Chris may be looking to try to catch on to Zazel here. Did get the black shield off, so the Justice Punch won't land, and another binding there from Zazel disengages.
Very scary, though. Big God's Jackals have grabbed control of this mid lane. They're using it to influence the side lanes a lot. You saw they were dropping down to that bot lane to stop the potential gank coming in from Dandy and Licorice. Then they swing up to the top side, cut off to Zazel when he's trying to look for vision control. Overall, they're grouped up, roaming jungler and support, almost finding some opportunities here. Chris even getting involved. Not quite able to get the kill, but getting the flash out of Morgana is a pretty nice prize overall.
Yeah, and that of course means that there's going to be no flash bindings for Big God's Jackals to have to look out for if they're going to be going into another vision war like they did in the mid lane not that long ago. Licorice going to be content to kind of go toe-to-toe with Peekaboo for the meantime, although Peekaboo does have a slight level advantage. We see Black Cleaver and Frozen Mallet complete on Lennar, so his kind of 2 core itemization items are complete. The Trinity Force, and still looking for the Rapid Fire Cannon on Corki, but now eUnited see an opportunity to, with their split pusher on the bot lane, drawing some pressure, they're going to be going to dive down on the Chris, but a big tanky Galio is going to survive for a long time, so they decide to switch onto Sir T, but the hero's entrance will keep him alive, buffing up those resistances, making him a very difficult bug to squash. This tower is still extremely low, and eUnited not going to be giving up this pressure up here quite yet, looking to be taking this one down.
Well played on the side of Big God Jackals to not actually die in that dive attempt, switching targets, getting the ultimate off by Chris. Unfortunately, they got very low, but a huge play.
A flash play hits 3 members from eUnited, and GBM goes down. Meanwhile, Chris is teleported onto the backside. Licorice going to be teleported into the front. Fabi jumps forward, flashes out, goes down, however. Now eUnited looking to turn the fight. A Nor against the wall, and that's going to be Chris getting some big shields to stay alive. He doesn't quite go down, but a second AD carry enters the fray. A double kill from Peek and Woo's Corki. Zazel and Licorice have to turn tail and run, but Sir T and Peek and Woof are here. There's going to be a binding to stop the advance from Corki, but he's got some long-range rockets. Triple kill for Corki.
And an ace for Big God's Jackals, actually only losing 1 in that engagement, so they're going to be able to turn on to Baron now and potentially pick this one up. They were falling pretty far behind in this game, but eUnited really mess up that turret dive. The turret stays alive the entire time, constantly pelting eUnited. And even though Fabi got a little bit too aggressive there and ends up going down, Big God is able to punish, that kind of dive coming in from eUnited. And here, get an ace and the Baron buff coming flying back into this game.
Chris being able to get ganked, recall, teleport in, recall, and then tank up this Baron is being quite effective as well. GBN comes in with the Weaver's Wall to try to pick up any stragglers that are at low HP, and even though he gets some damage down onto Chris, it looks like the rest of Big God Jackals can be A-okay to hightail it out of there. 5 Baron buffs looks like his Fabi respawn now available for Big God's Jackals.
So they've already survived the initial dive attempt. Biona deserves a lot of props here. He sees that his team's getting engaged on and goes for a big 3-man play, slows them down, deters the initial dive, and gets the kill onto GBM here. And then while Chris gets a nice flank engage off and splits the team fight up, Fabi goes a little bit too far forward, but during this whole time, Licorice is pinned up against the wall, and that's a very, very tanky Galio, who's able to get a big shield, and this whole time, the turret has now dropped everyone down below, 30% health. They're all dead, and this is where the poke and chase potential that comes in from the Corki is so effective.
We see just him and the Causes combining to take down the remaining stragglers from the side of the side of eUnited. We did see that GBM was able to just love tap that tower on the top side of the map and finally take it down, but the momentum has shifted heavily in favor of Big God's Jackals. While they're still down in gold, they're the ones who are able to make moves across the map now, utilizing Peek and Woo's Corki and the split push potential from him to take down the bottom lane tower and bring this gold count just under 1,000 apiece, or 1,000 difference.
The thing to know, though, is that Big God's Jackals probably do not win the game outright off this Baron. It's a huge team fight win and objective pickup to make sure that eUnited is not snowballing out this game, but they need to find some more objectives here. Breaking the mid lane turret is exactly what they need. Open the map up for themselves to keep being able to push the lanes in even further, get some more global gold back, because you're going to have to win another fight before you win this game, most likely. And you need as much gold as you can get to try and even this out.
And they've also opened up the map to a ton of pressure with all the outer towers now going down because of this Baron buff. Gold count pretty much evened up across the board. So eUnited, now we see all those early game advantages they had just kind of slipping away from them ever so slightly. A Mountain Drake has spawned on the map, and with the Baron buff still at about 1:30, we'll see if Big God's Jackals utilize that to get the objective on the map, or if they continue to try to push up onto these objectives. All the lanes pretty much pushing in their favor. A large conglomeration of minions on the top side of the map will be pushing for Big God's Jackals there, and they're close enough to this bottom side that's pushing out against them right now. Just utilize that Baron buff to secure that, so they will be A-okay to push into this Mountain Drake and take that one for themselves. eUnited are not content to walk into the dark of this river here, and will be giving that one up.
Conglomeration of minions, huh?
Yeah.
Corporation.
It's like, yeah, it's like they all decided that they're going to meet up at the base, and they're going to go on an excursion into the top lane. Like
too many minion conglomerates trying to run the rift. All right, gotta take it back. As here we see, actually, once again, a nice binding. Chunks out, pick him up a little bit with the help of GBM, but Big God Jackal still sieging down this bottom turret. they do have a really nice siege comp. We talked about before they ran this with Corki and Caitlyn. Tristana's still extremely long-range late-game carry, and with that Mountain Dragon that they just secured, they're going to be able to chip away at these turrets very effectively.
Yep. Meanwhile, the union of minions in the top lane continues to push down on that tower, and Licorice in the meantime might be looking for a flank of his own. Baron Buff only has a couple of seconds left available on it, but Kha'Zix having Thunderlords could potentially wind up having the Runic Affinity to extend this, so that he might wind up going for the Assassin upgrade, and it does look like that. With no more minions in the area and this Baron buff timer ticking down, that Big God's Jackals might not be able to take the last tower on the bottom side, but they are occupying the time from eUnited long enough for that top lane to be pushing down.
As well as the fact that Licorice is now Mega Nard out. It's about to time out, and you know that you are safe during this. As soon as that's out, the engaged threat that was coming in from the flanking Gnar is down. They grab the bottom turret. You mentioned that corporation of top lane minions able to break that on their own. I guess they're more of like a union, huh?
The minion LLC.
I think
top
we called
lane.
it the union. That was really what they are, because they're a bunch of, you know, they're the little guys. They're the blue-collar workers of Summoner's Rift. And they go up there and they go union, you know, they go break that turret down.
What do you think is the Bruce Springsteen song of the minion union in the top side?
This is way too abstract of a question for me to handle, Tom.
He's like the blue-collar musician guy.
No, I understand the question. I just meant like I am too simple to answer that.
Oh, okay. Well, you're wearing the blue shirt, so I figured you'd get along with this one. You've got a blue collar.
I understand, but I think blue collar is not referring to a nice, fashionable blue collar.
Meanwhile, Big God's Jackals on the blue side of this game have been able to finally get themselves a gold lead against eUnited. 11 kills to 10. About 30 minutes into this game, they don't have a Baron buff on their side anymore, but they've opened up the map. They got 5 towers now compared to the 3. They've been able to knock down 2 tier 2s. The only one that's left is that mid lane tower. An Infernal Dragon probably won't spawn for about 4 or 5 minutes still. But now they've gotten themselves some advantages. They have really good vision control all across the top side of the river, even extending down to the bottom side ever so slightly. eUnited are going to have to be a little bit hard-pressed to, you know, push forward into this one. Their Gnar split push hasn't been working out the same it was in game number 1, and now they're kind of on the deathly plan.
Well, and there you see, though, that's a tough plan to really go all in on, as he eats a single auto attack from Fab. He gets dropped down to about half health. That's the struggle that a Sivir kind of has to deal with. Sure, she can sustain up, but it is very hard to walk up and really contest things. Now, Big God Jackals need to understand that they're not super far in the lead now, though their comp probably outscales in 5v5 team fights. That's great, but you don't actually have too sizable of a gold lead that you can start going crazy in team fights and taking anyone. You still need good setup, and sometimes it's hard to know exactly where you are gold value-wise in a game like this, where you were behind the whole time, you ace them, you take a Baron, and then you get a ton of objectives. You probably feel much, much further in the lead than you might actually be. So they just need to make sure that they play this cleanly from here on out.
I mean, itemization is usually a good indication as to how far ahead you actually are. And because of that Baron buff, we've seen Pikachu go from Trinity Force and Zeal straight through to a static shiv in addition to an Infinity Edge. Fabi's completed his kind of Energizer build himself with the double Zeal items, Rapid Fire Cannon, Static Shiv, and his Infinity Edge. And across the Rift, we actually see definitely has some good itemization for himself. He's still 3-1-1, and as you mentioned, the plan might be hard to commit to. He's got some decent itemization for himself. Has the Rapid Fire Cannon to give himself a little extra range, and the double crit item built with the Essence Reaver and the Infinity Edge, so his cooldowns and his wave clear will be there. But a Baron buff is going to be difficult to contest with, which will be up in about 30 more seconds.
Yeah, you see both teams recalling, trying to get back on the map right now. Big Gosh Jackals a little bit ahead, given the fact that they have some vision control already set up in this top river. Gonna try and get that one again. And they have about a minute and a half to try and force this Baron down as best they can, because after that you have the trade potential coming in with the Infernal Dragon. Obviously you want that Baron buff, but you want to be able to make sure you can get in a situation where your opponent is getting nothing in return.
eUnited in the meantime have been fighting the vision war against Big God's Jackals. Top side of the map of the Baron pit still pretty much in Big God's Jackals' controls. eUnited are going to be moving in as a unit of 4 or 5 just to try to contest this vision control, knowing that Big God's Jackals at this point in time with the double marksman composition can rush down for that Baron. They have the tank from Chris to just kind of sit there and be a-okay to tank it up for a while. 8 stacks on his Dark Steel is nothing to really shrug a shoulder at either. Has a Frozen Heart and this Sunfire Cape picked up in addition to the Adaptive Helm.
And Big God Jackals, they have a really good opportunity to just melt this. You mentioned the double AD carry, but they also have that Mountain Dragon in. eUnited have to be very careful when they send Licorice down to this bot side that they give up complete vision control, make it impossible to actually go up and contest that Baron. Big God Jackals doing a really good job pushing in these minion waves and forcing things. I like that flash off, a nice black shield by Zeyzal.
Zeyzal once again saving the day here for eUnited. Keeps GBM safe and sound here. Did want to pop in the ghost, but the flash was traded there by Big Chris on the big Galio pickup. Licorice in the meantime has been pushing away, as you mentioned, split pushing on the Gnar on this bottom side of the map, has gotten the minions all the way down to the tower, so even though eUnited were kind of hard-pressed to get vision control around this Baron Pit area, they staved off long enough for Licorice to push down this bottom lane and just disrupt Big God's Jackals, so now they're going to be able to move up into that Baron Pit area and re-establish some vision for themselves.
Oh man, huge play out of Zeyzal there, keeping GBM alive. If he goes down, that's basically guaranteed to be a free Baron. We talk about trying to survive that minute and a half on the side of eUnited. The fact that now that the Infernal Dragon is up, Big Gods can't just camp a single area of the map and force you to walk into them. They pull them down to the bot side where they don't have this vision control set up, and now Big Gods Jackals have to teleport in to contest this.
Well, they got a Corki package and Chris joining the fray. A Weaver's Wall is going to be coming up to try to cut them off, but they will wind up getting the second Infernal Drake of the game for themselves. That's going to be an engage from Danny at the backside, trying to chunk them down. A lot of damage goes across the fight. The hero's entrance going to re-engage this fight, but eUnited definitely is still kept alive. Dandy's finally going to pop, but another kill will go over to GBM, so they've gotten a kill on the peak move for eUnited side, but they've lost two for themselves. A Sivir crit will not land down onto Surtees, just a regular auto attack. Big God's Jackals get themselves the Drake, get 2 kills, and might have to get the heck out of dodge, just definitely trying to chase him down.
Such a huge engage on the side of Dandy. It looked like that was going to be all they needed to win that fight. But what's important to note is right before that happened, Big God actually gets the Infernal Dragon. And with that, they're able to use that extra damage to win this fight. I feel very strongly that if they did not get this Infernal Dragon, this probably does not go as well for them, because that's a huge engage here, and you see they're almost all full health, but GBM takes a lot of damage over the course of this fight. Pekka opens up onto him, gets him low. Licorice is low as well, doesn't really find a good opening to get his ultimate off. And during this whole time, the rest of the side goes to focus down Pekka. He gets killed, but is traded out very easily as GBM was not on the same page, was chasing the other people out of the fight. Very, very close, and just having that extra kind of residual damage that comes in with the Infernal Dragon, the fact that Surtees just kind of has to shoot his Void Spikes wherever he wants, just chunk people out like that. Pekka, his poke damage amplified a ton with that Infernal Dragon as well, able to land a lot of damage, get multiple members down very low very quickly after what was a monster engage by Dandy.
A 4-man flash body slam started off that fight, but 2 kills for 1 is how Big God's Jackals finished it. So while they have themselves now still about only a couple hundred gold advantage. I mean, it's not even so much of an advantage at this point as much as the gold counts are pretty much even. The itemization of the gold differences on a basically a character-by-character basis will really make or break who comes out ahead in the next fight. Fabi still about 1,000 gold behind his counterpart in Deathly. The top lane matchup is pretty much all but evened out as far as gold counts go. And the mid lane matchup, he can move on a signature pick of his own. This Corki coming into his own this game, about 1,000, actually, almost 1,000 or so gold ahead of his counterpart in GBM. So now you have pretty much 2 very powerful marksman carries on the side of Big God's Jackals, and then Deathly, who if he's able to be untouched in the fight and protected, will be able to just ricochet crit himself through a huge team fight.
Uh-oh, though Pekka, as singing his praises, might have caught himself out of position here. GBM cuts him off. Doesn't have a way in.
Ooh.
Gonna try and win the duel, though.
Goes forward. The redemption coming out there as well from Zeyzal, who heal up GBM, but GBM's gonna get a kill on the peak and move a flash forward from Surtees. Will go on a killing spree. Hop, skips, and jumps himself out of there. Hit level 17. Got the evolve win.
I'm not quite sure what GBM was doing there. He cut off the escape of Pekka right away, but then he kept the wall up, stopping Dandy from being able to get involved in that fight, cutting his own support off. From, really making that an odd man fight. So it ends up in a duel situation, which he's still able to win with Zeyzal's clutch redemption, but it bought so much time that Surtees was able to make his way up there, and then with the reset potential coming in from the Kazakhs, sneaks in there, gets the kill, hops out, ends up a 1-for-1 in what could have been a disastrous situation for Big God's Jackals.
Meanwhile, Big Chris, this big tanky Galio going toe-to-toe with Licorice. You mentioned the gold counts evened up, making that pretty much an even fight. And as you mentioned, the Weaver's Wall here from GBM was really great to cut off the escape from peak move, but Dandy can't get in.
Yeah, you can break this wall at any point. You see that.
He's trying to get in. Oh, even body slam, but it gets blocked by the minions.
Right, so this is a situation where you want to cut off the escape of the Corki, of course, but once you already put yourself in that position, you are effectively a wall as the Taliyah. The Corki is not going to try and run through you into a Gragas as well. So break that wall down, let your teammate get in and collapse onto that Corki. He basically sets himself up to go down there in that trade. And that was a play that if it's executed correctly, you might be able to turn that into a Baron. You might turn that into a bottom turret because they have to contest the Baron with the Galio, who did not have teleport at that time. And it's just a huge blunder on the side of GBM. In a game where he has been struggling pretty hard, getting caught out of position and missing some team fights.
Well, as Gnar goes Mega, he gnars back Chris into GBM to try to get some damage down from him, but this Galio with the adaptive film not taking a lot of damage from these Taliyah spells. Winds up having the Justice Punch himself through the Gnar, but now a package just comes in from Corki. They're focusing down on the GBM. The Hero's entrance is there as well as Peekaboo picks up a kill for himself. Now they've kind of cut off the escape from Licorice, but Dandy's coming in and so is Zazel, and this is erupted into a big team fight. Explosive cast there from Dandy tries to separate the fray. Chris and Peekaboo are very low on the backside, but the rest of the team has joined into this fight. One kill gets there for Fabi, ticking down as Bayano gets a kill there from the Ignite onto Dandy. Big Gods Jackals win the fight and lose no one.
A 3-for-0 on the side of Big God Jackals, once again coming off the back of some small mistakes out of eUnited. They drop down a ton of damage trying to focus down to Chris, unable to actually find that kill. Wolf is able to fly in with that package that he's just picked up. And you see just some miss skills here. The minefield that Taliyah puts down is not actually in range to proc any of those once he gets the pushback in. So they miss a bunch of damage on the initial engage. And then here comes Wolf, able to open up onto GBM right away, pops him extremely easy. And then Licorice might be able to turn this with the help of Dandy, but no CC available for Dandy. Ends up ulting them all in random directions. And there, off the back of that fight, it looks like Big God Jackal is going to try and force down this Baron.
Melting it down, and it just immediately dies. Kha'Zix's isolation damage went up on this patch, actually, and with double Infernal on the mountain, that Baron stood no chance.
Yeah, you got double Marksman as well, able to burn that down. And now, we talk about Big God Jackals needing a couple more plays to go in their favor before they really have a solid grasp of this game. Well, I would say enough stuff has gone in their favor now. They had that fight to get the second Infernal Dragon. They had that skirmish in the bot lane now to get the Baron, and now they're going to be able to melt down this Elder Dragon as well. So both neutral objectives on their side. And 40 minutes in the game, they're going to probably go for a game-ending push now.
Double Infernal, a single Mountain, now an Elder Dragon, and a Baron buff. Everything coming up Big Gods Jackals in this game. And this is a team that is basically locked into 4th place in the Challenger Series. They know that they're going to be going into the Challenger Series playoffs as the last seed, and they could kind of control their destiny here. If they were able to, first off, beat eUnited, it would be a huge upset and would be a huge confidence boost going into a playoff situation that they were very familiar with coming in from last split as well. The exact same position, the exact same seed. They beat eUnited here. That also means that, Goldcoin United, who are going up against Delta Fox, if they presumably win that matchup, that forces a tiebreaker between eUnited and Goldcoin United. So not only do you take down the top team a peg, but you show that you can go toe-to-toe with the top 2 seeds that made it to the promotion tournament last year. Or last split.
And on the side of eUnited, you go 0-2 on the last week of the regular season, 1 against your rival in GCU, and 1 against what should be the weakest team in playoffs, obviously trending downward potentially at the end of the season.
Yeah, but it looks like Big God Jackals here going for a push. They're able to take down that tower. Lickety split as eUnited are just forced to run in all directions here, trying to defend against this inhibitor. Licorice on the verge of turning Mega, getting pretty angry. He's not quite there to transform yet. Big God Jackals in the meantime. Elder Dragon burn still on them. Baron buff still taken away as well. They're finally able to force down that mid lane inhibitor, and eUnited see this game slowly slipping away from their grasp.
Really hard time to find an opening on Big Gods Jackals. Not only are they double marksmen, but those are 2 pretty mobile marksmen on their side, as well as having a big front line available with Chris grouped up there. eUnited needs to find some kind of flank, knock one of these priority targets back into your team right away, blow them up, and then hopefully you can win this fight. But it gets harder and harder as more objectives go in Big God Jackal's favor, as well as the fact that you are now having to deal with super creeps charging down the mid lane.
There's about a minute left on this Baron buff as well, so with super creeps in the mid lane and a Baron buff minions on the bottom side, Big God's Jackals going to be looking to cut people off. They actually chunked Dandy out just by Fabi himself. In the meantime, they have their second marksman here in Peekaboo, just content to clear the ways and shove out the minions into this tower.
Yeah, but now there's no Gragas ultimate available for just jumping is the only resource you use. Now one of the key initiation tools are down on the side of eUnited, making this siege even easier to go for.
Well, there's a Weaver's Wall from GBM just to cut off the minions in that tower, but the Baron Buff still active. The Cannon Crew is going to be doing a good job. Sir T gets knocked back in with the seismic shove, so Big God's Jackals take a little bit of damage from that one as they're trying to push their advantages forward. Looks like they are going to have to back away.
A nice seismic shove out of GBM saves that bottom turret potentially, buys them a lot of time. Big God Jackals have to reset, and off that, probably going to use the last little bit of their Baron buff here. eUnited, not the end of the world, able to hold on a little bit there. You do lose your mid lane inhibitor, but if you're going to have to lose an inhibitor, that's probably the best one to go down, as you are almost always situated around mid lane in the late.
We do see them pushing against that mid lane of super minions they have. Streaming onto this side of the map is eUnited. We're able to get down pretty much every single outer tower in the first 20 or 25 minutes of this game, but then stalled out since then, have been unable to take any for themselves. They're going to be pushing against super minions here. In addition to the fact that Chris is now going to be the one doing some split push duties for himself. Has picked up his Gargoyle Stone Plate, how thematic for the Galio. But also picked up an Aegis of the Legion for himself. So with that Stone Plate and potentially Locket combination on an already super tanky champion, it's going to be very difficult to try to close out a fight against Big God's Jackals if Galio shows up in the middle of it.
Yeah, that's the scary thing, is that they are kind of in full protect mode. I'm a little surprised to see only a single Knight's Vow, given the fact that people consider this item to be extremely strong generally, especially in double 80 carry compositions. You would have thought to have seen that even on the Kazakhs sometimes. We saw Levi doing that, I believe, at MSI previously, and with that Corki pick, it's a champion that's going to output a lot of damage. Would probably be worth grabbing, as well as the fact that he's, you know, one of the key members to keep alive, as well as the sustain that he would give you. But either way, only going with the single Knight's Vow.
We got the Zeke's Convergence down on Biano as well, so he's in full active items mode at this point in time, except for the fact that he still has one item slot there for himself. He'll be saving up a couple of control wards in the meantime as well, as Baron buff will be up in about 2 more minutes. Elder Dragon's probably going to be up about 5 more after that because of that. And now, Big God's Jackals, they have a lane of super minions pushing down, but there is a Sivir on the side of eUnited, so if there was a champion you wanted for wave clear in a later stage of the game, Sivir would be one of them, one of the ones that is right up there to kind of clear out those super minion waves. So they have the ability to stall out here, but even so, at this point in time, because they are so behind in the tower pushing game, despite the gold counts being pretty darn close here, about 5,000 gold advantage in favor of Big God's Jackals at, 45 minutes into the game isn't the biggest, hugest gold difference at all, especially because everybody's about 5 or 6 items at this point. But there's still so many objectives for this side of eUnited to have to rip through after a fight.
And it's one of those situations where, like you said, after a certain point, the gold lead becomes, not negligible, but the less important factor compared to how the comps actually interact. GBM loses his flash there with just a hop coming in from Sir T.
And his Ghost. He's got no summoners now.
Right, and Big God's Jackals, as I was just saying, probably have the better team fight, team comp. So as you start grabbing these summoners for free, it becomes even easier to execute in the late game, as well as the fact, like you said, you have these objectives in your favor and the gold lead.
Looks like Big God Jackals trying to bleed the jungle dry from eUnited side. Licorice, in the meantime, trying to get some leftover objectives for his own team. Still pushing on the bottom side of the map. Nara's still a bit of a menace here, even though we've seen Galio kind of being able to deal with him. But since eUnited are still the ones kind of having the jump on the split push game here, and Big God Jackals the ones responding, Nara might be able to get that tower down before Chris even winds up showing up to the bottom lane, and he will.
A nice little pickup for the side of eUnited, but not the end of the world if you're Big God's Jackals. They were just a little bit ahead of the play. Baron had not spawned yet, so it was very easy for Licorice to say, all right, I don't need to group up with you guys and help you get vision control quite yet. I'm going to grab this turret, get us a little bit more gold, catch us up a little bit in the game, hopefully. And now, not actually recalling, trying to take the 1v1 with Chris, but like you said, very tanky Galio. This is probably going to be a little bit of a wet noodle fight.
Well, he actually does have the red buff on him, which he stole away. We see the Gnar against the wall. He goes into mini Gnar form, and I can't even really see if he's dealing damage to Chris. Oh, there it is, because he has a magic damage shield on. Actually, Gnar dealing a bit of damage here. The Frozen Mallet slows as well. Chris gonna have to kind of turn tail and run, although he wasn't really trying his hardest to fight against the Gnar. The rest of Big God's Jackals are their 4-member group trying to jump on the GBM, but Sir T just jumps into a wall of pain. Takes a ton of damage as now Gnar's on the backside of this as well. Weaver's Wall from GBM is gonna try to cut off the rest of Big God's Jackals, but It's the damage dealers on the front line, and they still have Biano here. He's going to wind up playing Licorice forward. The box has been set up as well, but Licorice getting that black shield on. He's able to walk through it. A good binding lands from Zeyzal, but a jump away there from Fabi. The explosive cast lands though, and it knocks him back in, and Dandy picks up a kill. Chris winds up going into the back line, and Surtees able to pick up a kill onto GBM. Now it's a tanky Galio against the rest of eUnited. Peek and Whoop has showed up on the backside as well. They've lost one marksman, but
binding
the
again.
second one go. Zeyzal binds. Nar against the wall, definitely picks up the kill. eUnited are looking to try to win this fight. Big God's Jackals has to turn tail and run, and somehow eUnited turn this around, win the fight. They're taking down the Galio.
No, they're not.
Okay. Oh, a hook lands that onto Nar as well. He's going to try to hop over this one. Mini Nar's getting in the fray. Silver picks up yet another kill on the backside. Dandy gets a kill onto Surtee, and somehow all of Big God's Jackals is dead, Mark.
20 seconds until Fabi comes up. They do have a minion wave in this mid lane. They are missing GBM. They might be able to force this game down because Fabi died so early in that fight that the rest of the members are going to be dead for a while. Licorice is teleporting back in. It's going to be on Fabi to either try and clear the minion wave or blow up one of these key members if they can get Deathly, but it's going to be very hard. eUnited might have won that game off the back of Zeyzal's 2 clutch bindings.
I said it was going to be a hard game to win off of the back of one fight, but it might be eUnited doing it after all. The Mercurial Scimitar got used by Fabi. Both Nexus towers are dead. The Nexus goes down, and eUnited, after an early game lead, are the ones that come from behind to take this series 2-0.
I was talking about Zeyzal being a little bit of an unsung hero for this team. Not anymore after that game. He is basically the sole reason that they're able to win. That team fight 100% came off the back that he was able to snipe out Fabi at the start of the fight. Dandy comboed that with an explosive cast. They blow him up, and then after it looked like they were able to stabilize on the side of Big God's Jackals, another binding from the brush hits onto Peckenwolf and another kill. And with those 2 carries dead, eUnited is able to push down that mid lane and actually end the game.
So much follow-up CC was able to land because of those bindings. So Zeyzal once again being a huge, huge point for eUnited. And even though that game ended in a chaotic way in a huge team fight, we had to kind of step back and look at the game as a whole from the beginning, because this was pretty much the eUnited show for the first 20 minutes of the game until Big God's Jackals is able to win those fights around the Dragon Pit, able to kind of claw themselves back into this one, take a Baron for themselves, and for 30 minutes after that, it looked like that Big God's Jackals was going to close this out and force game 3.
I mean, even that Dragon fight that you're referencing, we talk about the fact that in that fight, Zeyzal hit 3 bindings in a row to set up 2 kills for his team there. So if you track this game, it feels like a lot of stuff did come down to the fact that Zeyzal was playing like an absolute monster. You do have to give a lot of props to Big God's Jackals, though. The fact that they came back a little bit in game 1, this time around in game 2, you mentioned that huge team fight victory in the top lane that gets them that Baron buff. And after that, they were, for the most part, out executing eUnited every step of the way until that last tragic team fight.
Yeah, and actually we have a replay of that last game-ending team fight as well for you guys to just kind of catch up on the chaos that wound up happening. Licorice was split pushing on the bottom lane. He forced out Chris and decided to jump into this fight. They cut off a Weaver's wall here. There's the damage dealers from the front of Big God Jackals in the front, and the rest of the team waiting behind in the back.
But Fabi here goes for this really short jump. He wants to just kind of get far enough away that he can come back into the fight and doesn't want to hard commit to jumping completely out of it. As a result, though, still is in range for that follow-up CC to come in from Dandy. He pops extremely early on. It still looks like an okay fight on the side of Big God's Jackals, though, because Peckenwolf was up on the top side, chunking multiple members out. Chris is still a huge frontline threat, but then here comes the binding, again, sniping out Peckenwolf there, and that's once again another trigger. This time it's for the side of Licorice to hop in and get that follow-up CC. And with those 2 carries dead, that is really the big threat on the side of Big God's Jackals. They have this double marksman composition. Both marksmen are down, and there's no longer anyone to really deal with Deathly. He can basically lifesteal tank any damage coming at him. And it's a chase down onto the rest of the members. Once everyone's dead, it's a 20-second respawn timer, or 30-second before Fabi even comes up. And then he's alone trying to defend against 4 pushing members on the side of eUnited. Not able to do that.
No, and eUnited, as you mentioned, Big God's Jackals looked like they had the better team fight comp for that game, and eUnited needed some sort of kind of disjointed fight or the CC to land, so everything kind of just lined up for them perfectly in that game-ending fight. Big God's Jackals, you mentioned, you gave them props for the ability to come back from the early game deficit, the fact that they were able to secure Barons and push down and take down some of these inhibitors, and it looked like they potentially could take down the #1 seeded team, but they weren't able to seal the deal. They weren't able to close it out, and positioning errors in that last fight specifically were their downfall. So Big Gods Jackals, sure, props to them for getting those advantages back and trying to take control of the game, but they still failed to close out the game and execute in the late game properly.
And it does feel kind of bad because there were a lot of like small mistakes that in a lot of situations don't actually cost you that game. You look at the fact that they were a little late getting down to that bot in their turret, the one that Licorice was able to take. Then Chris goes down there. Now that turret's down to a longer lane, he can no longer run under the turret for safety. So he gets kind of chunked out at the start of that fight. After chunking him out, Licorice dips up to the top, to the mid river, and that's where they get that small flank off. And then from there, they're in this really kind of all over the place fight, taking place in multiple fronts. And then after that, unfortunately, Chris cancels his TP. Fabi's a little bit out of position, doesn't jump as far back as he really should. The Chris ultimate is not being cast quite yet because they didn't realize the threat level that was going to be coming in just off that binding.
Yeah, and of course now, from the outside scope of that game, even though it was super crazy the way it ended, eUnited with that victory, with that last game-ending team fight, secured themselves a #1 seed coming out of the North American Challenger Series Summer Split. So they will be the #1 seed going into the playoffs, regardless of what GCU does against Delta Fox today. They've lost one match in general. They looked a little bit shaky against GCU.
Yep.
They looked a little bit shaky in game #2 there, but they still have the execution in the late game, or at least they still have the Zazel bindings to save them in the late game.
Yeah, I mean, if that's going to be your win condition, I'm going to say you might have a hard time in the playoffs, but, every game won't go perfectly. You take your wins where you can get them, and it's important that they close this week out not on a 0-2.
Yeah, and well, for more on that victory, of course, in addition to maybe their thought process in that last team fight, I'd like to welcome Deathly to the broadcast via Skype. Deathly, how's it going?
It's going great. It feels good to win 2-0, you know.
I was going to say, how's your heart feeling after that last game-ending team fight where things got a little bit hectic?
Oh, well, honestly, I wasn't really worried about that entire game 2. I knew that we were the better team, so no matter what happens, I think we would have ended up winning.
So pretty confident overall as a team. I want to ask you a little bit about Zazel because he's a guy that doesn't receive quite as much attention as a lot of the other members on the side of eUnited. And I think in that game in particular, you saw how important he can be for your team. So talk to me a little bit what it's like laning with him and then what it's like playing with him out of lane.
Laning with Zazel, he has his ups and like I have my downs, you know. But he's usually the one to like control the lane. He's really smart about it. He's more of like the brain to the lane, and I'm more of like the brawn. And then come mid late, he's like a really loud voice. He's constantly like calling for what we could be doing, what we should be doing, stuff like that. And he's a clutch player, of course. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, but last relegation, he like popped off against Team Liquid.
Yeah, obviously a great player for your team. Kind of funny to hear that once again. It's another AD carry getting microed by the support, kind of supporting that narrative that AD carries are they just click things and try and kill stuff.
I don't know so much about that, but speaking of AD carries, we saw you kind of going back to the Sivir pickup. Game 1, of course, you got focused in the second ban phase. So game #2, you kind of picked it up with a bunch of other options on the table. What is it about the Sivir pick that you were finding in these matchups specifically to kind of be a good idea?
Well, Sivir is like a really good late game champ. We haven't practiced much this week since our Koreans had to go get their visas. We had no internet for a couple days, so we were just thinking, hey, let's just take the game to late game, and it might be easier that way. And also, Sivir into Tristana is a pretty good matchup as long as you spell shield Tristana's E. Yeah, I think it's just a good matchup, and it fitted us well this week.
So you guys, as you just said, had some struggles this week. Does that play it all into the loss that you took to GCU yesterday? And, I mean, it's obviously kind of the big rival for you guys. It was the finals last time around in spring. So, I was going to ask, does this shake your confidence at all? But it sounds like the problems you had this week might have been a big reason for that loss yesterday.
Yeah, I think not only was it a confidence issue, it was just like all of our players just being rusty a bit. Like not having internet for a couple days and then just not having scrims all week is pretty rough.
With that victory, you guys have secured yourself the #1 spot in the North American Summer Challenger Series. So you're going to be heading into the playoffs as the #1 seed, which means you're going to want to go up against Big Gods Jackals again next week. So tell me about just overall in the playoffs. How are you guys feeling coming into this playoff series compared to the last splits?
It's honestly kind of like the same. I think last season we ended our regular season against Big Gods 2-0 as well. And then we happened to 3-0 them in the playoffs, which I think you can see again for this split.
All right, looking forward to see that 3-0, big words.
Yeah, well, we'll hold you to that one. We'll see how that goes next week. Congratulations this week on the 2-0, and thank you very much for joining us for the interview.
Yeah, thank you.
That's going to be it for eUnited versus Big Gods Jackals. But wait, there's more Challenger action coming up. Join Mark and I for some bonus coverage of Delta Fox versus Tempo Storm coming up right after the break. And Mark, of course, promised us somebody's going to pop off.
It's going to be fun.
All right, we'll see you there. Ooh, the seismic shove into a flash body slam. Then knew Surti was there the whole time, and the bug gets splat. Tower Aggro actually goes down onto Chris, but Surti gets the kill here as Licorice flashes forward, but he's able to get the kill back on that one.
Now they're continuing looking for
Bayano was on a ward the whole time. Definitely goes on a killing spree. Zazel and Licorice have to turn tail and run, but Surti and Peek and Whoop are here. There's going to be a binding to stop the advance from Corki, but he's got some long-range rockets. Triple kill for Corki. The rest of the team has joined into this fight. One kill gets there for Fabi, ticking down as Bayano gets the kill there from the Ignite onto Dandy. Nar against the wall, definitely picks up the kill. eUnited are looking to try to win this fight. Big Gods Jackals has to turn tail and run, and somehow eUnited turn this around, win the fight.